download that show. Hello haters, definite friends of bosses, man. Download that show. Hello haters, definite friends of bosses.
Hey guys, how's it going? Good to see y'all. A lot of people here I see. Wow. Okay, great. All right. I think we're going to have a great show this evening. We have a special guest, a longtime friend, acquaintance. I've known our guest for quite a long time, but let me get through the announcements first before we get into the introduction. Let's see. Okay, just one thing. I will have a special announcement at the end of the podcast. So hang on. During the last 5 minutes or so, I'll make an announcement. And no, Jeff, I am not retiring. I already retired 11 years ago. I'm not retiring. Don't worry about that. Okay, let's see. Monkey Wench podcast, and today is May 7th, 2025. We have just a couple announcements first we'll go over. And let me see here. All right, June 19th through the 22nd, we have a camp out in the Allegheny National Forest. So please get on the Pennsylvania Bigfoot Project group on Facebook for information. And Wendell, no. God, no. And that will be June 19th through the 22nd. And if you want information on our last camp out at Micho State Forest, get on to Old Line Cryptids. And Jeff and Jerry and Dusty did a great show last night. And please get on Old Line Cryptids, their podcast. It's on YouTube. And they went over the camp out since I couldn't make it. But they had a great time from what I hear. Oh, Dusty's back at the shop. Okay, cool too. Good. All right, great. There are campouts at Salt Fork State Park in Ohio. And yeah, it's a courtesy, since the SOSB group Southeast Ohio Sasquatch. I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but their campouts are held at the group camp on Parker Road at Salt Fork. Thank you, Kurt. Have a great day. Yeah, thanks. And their campout dates, let me see, May 8th through the 11th, so tomorrow, June 12th through the 15th, July 10th through the 13th, August 14th through the 17th, September 11th through the 14th, and October 9th through the 12th. Those are hosted by the SOSBI group, SOSBI. Doug Waller is he is head of that one. So you'll need to contact Doug Waller or Jack Warren on Facebook for information on their campouts. Let's see. Order your official Pennsylvania Bigfoot Project merchandise, logo merchandise, through me personally. You can email me at Pennsylvania, you'll have to spell it out, unfortunately, Pennsylvania Bigfoot Project at gmail.com. And that includes my book. Whoop, that's not my book. Where the heck is my book? It's upstairs. I took my copy upstairs. Sorry. That's not my book. Anyway, if you want to order my book, email me. Send me a message on Messenger also. And that's $20 for a autographed copy, and that's including postage. And let's see. Yeah, if there's any prayer request, please just say, you can comment in the comments, prayer request. You don't need to go into detail. Just say prayer request, and myself and other prayer warriors here in the group, as well as others, will keep you in our prayers. So, and that's very important that, that as Christians, we uphold one another and support each other. And I know that there are a few that I have been hearing from for the past couple days, and I've got a few new ones in my prayer list. And okay, so again, all right, Katrina, absolutely, I'll keep you in my prayers. Absolutely. Okay, guys. All right, tonight we have a special guest, Andy Nunez, and I hope that I pronounced his last name correctly. He can correct. Okay, thumbs up, thanks. Andy was born on Maryland's Eastern Shore. He graduated from the University of Maryland, Eastern Shore, with a degree in art, and has since developed a diverse set of interests that range from drawing comics to military history, from board wargaming to treasure hunting to devouring sci-fi, fantasy, and horror novels. Married with a daughter and 3 stepsons, Andy works for the state of Maryland and is also editor of the award-winning military simulation magazine, Against the Odds. And I may or may not have put the web link for that in the description. If not, I'll check it over and I'll add that in, Andy. Let's see, where he also writes a continuing column on elite combat units. Andy's love of writing evolved from love of the sci-fi and pulp reprints he devoured as a child. His first professional publication was in the Shore Writer's Sampler 2 from Friendly Harbor Press. Since then, he has written an array of pastiches based on the soap opera Dark Shadows and the works of Edgar Rice Burroughs, creator of Tarzan. Now, that is how Andy and I met, through our mutual love of the writings of Edgar Rice Burroughs. We're both fans of Tarzan. Tarzan of the Apes, guys. A number of his pastiches can be found on Herbalist, ERBLIST.com /fanfiction/index.html, and that link is in the description. Andy has had articles and stories published in Lost Treasure, Western and Eastern Treasures. Oh my goodness, I will really mangle this word. Grenadier, Chain of Command, Inside the Old House, and Tales from the Shadows. He also created the comic strip Skipjack Pete, which ran for several years in the Ocean City, Maryland Daily Info. His first published book, Treasures of the Eastern Shore, was released in the summer of 2005. His next book, Mysteries of the Eastern Shore, came out in 2006. His first novel, The Crimson Need, a horror story set on the Eastern Shore, was released in 2007. And the final part of his Eastern Shore trilogy, Ghosts of the Eastern Shore, came out in late 2008. Andy released a pictorial history of Wicomico County with noted writer and lecturer Johnny Hayes, author of 17 books, in early 2008 under the Arcadia Images of America series, and Salisbury, Picturing the Crossroads of Delmarva, was released in 2010, along with Ghost 2 of the Eastern Shore, a sequel to Ghost of the Eastern Shore. So, all right, guys, I would like to present to you our special guest, Andy Nunez. Welcome, Andy.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Well, it's nice to be able to talk to you in person now.
Yes.
The only problem I'm having is I can't join the chat because I'm on my work laptop and I don't have a YouTube account on here.
Oh,
So
okay.
if anybody got any questions, though, I'll answer them.
Yes.
One correction to that great intro is I retired from the state of Maryland.
All right. Well, congratulations.
So, yep, after 30 years. So,
Wow.
but I'm still working part-time. So, but I'm here to talk about stuff, about Bigfoot and
Yeah.
here on the Eastern Shore. I saw a guy up way up on the chat link because I can see him. I just can't join. That said this might be a marginal kind of habitat for Bigfoot. Well, that's not necessarily true.
Okay.
There's lots of woods here on the Eastern Shore. There are two big areas. One is the Pocomoke Forest, and the other one is the Great Cypress Swamp, otherwise known as the Burnt Swamp. And both of those are Bigfoot hotspots here on the shore. So, but I'm here to answer your questions, and talk about the Eastern Shore.
Yeah, fantastic. If, as soon as one of the members of the chat comes up with a question, I'll pop it up on the big screen here. And guys in the chat, if you have a question, please put it in all capital letters so I can see you. Okay.
Yep. Like I said, I can see them, just can't join.
Well, there's one says, "Welcome, Andy."
Yeah. Nice to be here. I love Pennsylvania. I get up to the Dutch country whenever I can.
Oh, okay.
I love Lancaster.
Oh,
yeah. I get a lot of highs and high guys. Welcome, hi from the Eastern Shore of Maryland, the land of pleasant living.
All right. So, tell us about how much have you researched of the Eastern Shore area for cryptids? Not only cryptids, but you also cover ghosts?
I covered the whole paranormal beat down here on the Eastern Shore.
Wow.
But most of the cryptid stories that I'll be talking about or that I have are in my book, Mysteries of the Eastern Shore. So it looks backward on my screen, but that's okay. Anyway, I talk about the different sightings of not just Bigfoot, but big cats, big fish, sea monsters, and things like that. Are there? Oh, I see. Is there any organizations locally collect reports, compile statistics? Not that I know of. There is one YouTube, not YouTube. There's one Facebook page that talks about UFOs and other things, but nobody ever gets on there. So I don't. As far as statistics, I'm the closest you're going to get, and you know, oh, somebody wants to know about the big cat. Yes, I got 2 big cat stories. One, this lady lives on the fringe of Pocomoke Forest, and she had a little dog. Little dog went out, saw this big cat, came running back, and that night she heard it howling in the woods. So that was back. That's in mystery. So that was back in 2007, 2008. But just recently, I was at a local comic book convention where they told me Tarzan comics aren't worth anything, Mary. So I hope you didn't say. No.
Well, you
anyway,
to them.
Anyway, this whole family came up to me and they said, we've seen Bigfoot in our backyard. We're over near Georgetown, Delaware. We've have evidence that they've been nesting back in the woods. I said, oh, okay. She said, and we saw a big cat too back there. I'm like, okay. Oh, okay. She couldn't describe. She said it was a big cat. Now, I gave a lecture week before last up in Greenwood, Delaware, which is about halfway up the state. And the lady there said that she'd seen several big cats on her property. Now, I didn't get a chance to, I've got her email, so I can talk to her, but somewhere up there in mid Delaware, there's some big cats roaming around because there's 2 reports of them. And, there's still plenty of woods here on the Eastern Shore. Yeah. A lot of what's being built over for urban development is farmland, which is a shame. I grew up in a farming community. I have a lot of respect for the farmers, and I'm sorry that they're losing out to these housing developments. And I say that my house is in a development that was built on a farm.
Oh.
So, but yeah, I didn't get nobody told me what the cats looked like other than they were big. They didn't tell me what color. I think the one in 2008 was dark, maybe black.
Okay.
But that's, they just saying they're big cats. So, where in Delaware, near Georgetown, was in Delaware. And Georgetown's also the site of 2 other Bigfoot sightings. Well, Route 404, which is a little bit north of Georgetown, and Georgetown are 2 Bigfoot sightings that were seen by drivers. One saw 2 Bigfoot chasing, well, I don't know if they're chasing. They said they were following a herd of deer across Route 404. And the other ones were near Georgetown, and they just looked out the window, and there was this Bigfoot standing there. And he seemed, like it was no big deal. He was just standing there kind of, hi. So, so I, could have been, but, a lot of problem with getting people to seriously talk about Bigfoot down here is the fact that in the early 1960s, there was a big hoax.
Oh.
In 1964, there was a newspaper called the Delmarva News in Delaware, and they needed to boost their subscriptions. So they convinced this fellow named Fred Stevens to make up this outfit. He used his aunt's old raccoon coat from back in the day. He put on some wool pants and put a fright wig on, and a mask, and he went down on Route 54, which bisects the cypress swamp, which also known as the Selbyville Swamp, and the burnt swamp because some moonshiners still set it on fire in the 1920s, and it burned. But anyway, so he would be out there at night, and when a car would come around the corner, he'd kind of ease out towards the road so they could see him, and then he'd kind of ease back in. And of course, the editors started getting all these inquiries, started running all these articles and everything, and circulation went way up. So Fred kept doing it. And then the monster hunters showed up with their guns, and Fred stopped.
No wonder.
But in the 1980s, he owned up and admitted that, yes, he was the Selbyville Swamp Monster.
Wow.
Also known as the Line Road Monster because Route 54 bisects Maryland and Delaware.
Okay. Wow.
So we're talking 100 miles from the Pennsylvania border where this hoax was. But Georgetown and up that way, that's a lot closer. That's only about an hour or so's drive from the Pennsylvania border.
Yeah.
So you got Bigfoot up there, good chance that they're filtering down here. Lots of creeks and woods and swamps and waterways for them to kind of, filter down this way.
Yeah. Yeah, they're they like the swamps. I found you never see a swamp in the area. Yeah, there's usually reports right around there.
Well, the Selbyville Swamp is a big piece of land. So, I mean, I've driven through there at night. It's creepy, but I've not seen anything. But people say,
yet,
even though it was a hoax, that there was some truth that go back as far as the Native Americans about these spirit animals or big creatures, and owls with giant heads and things like that lived in the swamp. And back in the 1900s, somebody claimed to have shot one of these things in the swamp and brought its head back. But by the time he got somebody to see the head, it rotted. And the witnesses said it just looked like a dog's head. And they just kind of walked off,
Probably threw it away at that point.
Yeah. So that's the closest to you guys. Now, farther down in Maryland, there's been a couple of sightings down this way. Of course, like I said, Pocomoke Forest is a big area, and it is chock full of all kinds of paranormal activity and cryptids and things like that. So it's not unusual that there'd be some Bigfoot sightings. Now, just a little bit east of the forest is a town called Berlin. And there were two fellas, they were driving a big old Chevy Suburban down the road there near Berlin. And here was this Bigfoot standing right beside the road, looking down on them. Like I said, they were in a Suburban. Bigfoot was looking down. And they went by and they're like, let's get out of here. But I had a lady that I went to college with. Her family had a store back on the fringes of the forest. It was a little country store, and she would drive home through the forest every night because we went to college in Princess Anne. So you have to travel through the Pocomoke Forest to get to where her family's house and store was. So she was driving through there one time, and she saw this thing go across the road, and it kind of looked like a formless, she said like a cloud. She said it just kind of went on through. But later on in her mother's garden in the back of the house, they found these big footprints. So they took photos of them, and they took a plaster cast of them, and I kept worrying her about it, and she never did come up with it. So a few years back, I connected with her niece, who's running a local apothecary here in Salisbury. And she's got all that stuff, tarot cards and Ouija boards and magic wands and crystals and things like that in there. And so I asked her, I said, can you ask your Aunt Diane if she's got those pictures? And she says, yeah, I did. And she said that plaster cast was up on a shelf and it fell down. He broke 100 pieces. So,
oh, no.
So It's one of those stories. Well, we had evidence, but now we don't.
Yeah. Well,
So,
so it's still, it's a witness report, at least
yeah,
of a footprint.
yeah, yes. And like I said, Pocomoke Forest is full of things,
Yeah.
witches, ghosts, all kinds of strange stuff back there,
Goodness.
all along the fringes. Any stories from Green Swamp? You mean Greenbrier Swamp? Is that what, there's two Greenbrier swamps on the eastern shore. There's one near the Pocomoke Forest, and then there's one in a bit north in Dorchester County. Now, I can tell you a ghost story about the one in Dorchester County, but I don't have any cryptid stories over there. But I did get a report up that way of a Bigfoot sighting near a river. That's, guy saw him at a distance. I think he was a game warden or something, and told a friend of him. This is one of those third-hand things. Friend of a friend said he saw it. So I don't have any details, on that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And then we go down into Virginia, where we have the invisible screaming Yahoo of Craddockville. Yeah, I know. This story actually goes back to the 1700s. There was a place called Craddock. It was an old house that Craddockville's named after. But before that, it was called the Teakle Farm. And the fellow that lived on it, his name was Teakle, was an officer in the Patriot militia during the Revolutionary War. And the British landed on the Bayside to arrest, capture him and all that. And he hid. And so they roughed up his wife and his child and locked them in this shed called the Weaver's House, where they wove fabrics and stuff like that. And they burned the mansion down before Teakle could come back with the local militia and drive them off. So by the time that he got back there, the mansion was burned to the ground. So they rebuilt it in brick in 1778. And that night, while they were celebrating, they heard this horrible screaming sound. And that was the beginning of the legend. But right up through the 1950s, people were talking about this invisible thing that would follow them around and scream. And it would be right behind them. They turn around and shoot it. It would be quiet, and then when they'd get to their door, it would start screaming again.
Oh, jeez.
And it hated dogs. It would, dogs would be killed and things like that. And
Okay.
there was just no stopping this thing, but it was invisible. So I talk about this in mysteries, and I refer to B. Ann Slate and Alan Berry's book about Bigfoot from the 1970s, and where they talk about the psychic aspects of Bigfoot and that Bigfoot can become invisible. If you've ever read the book, it's a great book. Most of it takes place in California, but it really, when I was real young when I read it, it really left an impression on me with the possibility that these Bigfoot can command such psychic powers that you can't see them, so it was the screaming Yahoo like that. I don't know. I just don't know. But we've got plenty of them around. Plenty of sightings around here. So
who knows? About I get a lot of reports about portals and invisible ones and mind speak and other paranormal type reports. That who knows?
Who knows? Yeah. I read Linda Godfrey's books, and I love those too. And I even talked to her, and I'm sorry she's gone because she talked about these portals and stuff like that. Can it happen? Anything's possible. We now talk about multiverses, multiple dimensions, and Phil Imbrogno, he wrote a whole book on multidimensional universes. It's not impossible. Like I always say, anything, the universe is infinite. So infinite things can be happening. Infinite things is possible. God made such a wonderful creation that it's just too big for us to really get a handle on, from our points of view.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Just, so many amazing things that happen that we just can't explain. But then it's, I liken it to medieval days. If someone did any type of scientific thing around a peasant, they would think that it was magic. Uh,
Sure, sure.
and it's the same now. We are the primitive ones. We don't understand, the paranormal aspects of the portals and the disappearing Bigfoot or anything else like that. That just it's possible that's just a more advanced science that we don't understand yet.
Okay. Muddy Creek came back on and said, did he answer the question? My
Yeah.
question to you, Muddy Creek podcast, was, are you talking about the Greenbrier Swamp or something else? So that was my question. Most things, black Bigfoot, black or dark brown. Yeah, down here. There's no white ones. They're either invisible or they're black or brown.
Yeah.
What do I think about a Gugway? That's one I've not heard of. So you got me on that one.
Okay.
I'm not as up. Guess I'm not as up on Bigfoot as I probably should be. But I've got a half dozen books back on the shelf of that I've read.
Yeah, I've researched that there's been a few reports of Gugway around here, just a little bit north of me.
Okay.
It's a more vicious um, of cryptid.
I'm seeing in the chat now. Okay.
Yeah.
No, you're wrong state. Maryland, no, we haven't seen anything like that. The screaming Yahoo killing dogs is about as nasty as it gets for around here. But we
Hmm.
get more complaints about Satanists stealing people's animals and sacrificing them than we do about monsters eating them. I'm afraid.
Oh. Now, do you think that the so-called Satanists are being blamed for Bigfoot taking a dog or pets?
Quite possibly. I mean, there was a big Satanist group down south in Chrisfield, which, by the way, also had a Bigfoot sighting. It's a seacoast. It's a bayside. You used to call it seafood capital of the world. When the orchards were big, they were getting. It was like a gold rush town.
Mhm.
But in the 1980s, somebody claimed they saw a Bigfoot down there. And a friend of mine who lived down there, he says, "Well, I heard that there was this pet white ape that escaped and hung out at the junkyard." Again, I can't verify all this stuff.
Yeah.
But what always fascinated me about the Chrisfield area, there's a section of the water called Ape Hole, and I've never found out why it's called Ape Hole Creek. You
Hmm.
know, nobody can tell me why it's been called that for decades.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, well, yeah, because one of my supervisors back in the day, she had a Satanist group that met at, I think it was an old Boy Scout camp down near there in Chrisfield, and her dog was missing. And her son was friends with one of the kids, one of these Satanists, and he got initiated. He said, "What'd you have to do?" He said, "Well, I had to kill a dog."
Ooh.
The supervisor said, "That's what happened to my dog." you know.
Oh, wow.
Do I think Bigfoot is flesh and blood? Yes, I do. I've read, Ivan Sanderson on up on Bigfoot, and there's they've got to be solid animals. Now, whether they can dissolve, turn invisible, things like that, but I'm more convinced that it's a real creature, whether he is terrestrial, he has his origins back in the fossil record, or whether he's dropping in from another dimension. That's anything's possible on that. We've not seen much of that. Albert Osmond was kidnapped, stayed with a
Yeah.
Bigfoot family back in the mid 1900s. That's the closest I think we have come to their physical presence and activities, and the fact that they actually lived here on Earth as if it was normal. It's not as if that they were just kind of checking in and checking out. But you just can't explain some of these activities, these Bigfoot, other than they can appear and then disappear like that. I mean, you guys had your own Bigfoot UFO connection back in the 70s, and not too far from you guys,
Right.
where there was those two. I forget the name of the fellow that encountered them, but he shot one of them and said it screamed like a baby.
Yep.
Didn't seem to, didn't seem otherwise to hurt him. He screamed like a baby, and he turned to the other one and said, waved his hand. They went back where they came from, and they saw this UFO. And the guy fell down and started making all these doomsday prophecies. So whatever they were, they had a profound psychic effect on him.
Yeah.
So I yes, I tend to believe they're flesh and blood, but I also can't deny that they have some innate psychic power that is beyond us.
Yeah.
In their ability to evade, elude, and just, not be captured or killed or anything like that. I can't explain it. I'm just a writer. Not an anthropologist, not a scientist, not a DNA expert. I just think.
No. Have you gone camping or on a Bigfooting outing at all?
No, nobody around here hunts for Bigfoot. The only thing I get to do is go on ghost hunts looking for ghosts. So yeah, I mean, I've gone through the Pocomoke forest, I've gone through my own forest back when I was a kid, all up and down and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Have I seen anything like Bigfoot? No, but that doesn't mean he's not there.
Right.
Doesn't mean that he's not right there, but I can't see him.
Right. At that moment.
At that moment. Exactly. So, I had a dog that was a great tracker. I'd go through the woods. He'd run off. I wouldn't know what was happening to him. And he comes back with a deer. Of course, I don't have a gun, but I could have reached out and touched that deer. He brought him that close to me. Like, good boy. It just don't have any use for him right now. So I think there's something that, there's something physical there. How it operates, still a mystery.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a question from a guy about Harford County. Yes, vaguely, I can tell you that there's some stuff in Harford County. Loch Raven Reservoir up that way, I guess that's closer to Baltimore, was a Bigfoot hotspot, I believe, in the 1970s. There were a number of sightings of Bigfoot up there. There still seems to be a lot of activity in the Baltimore County, Harford County, that area with Bigfoot, but it's not my beat, because it's off the Eastern Shore, technically. So I really don't have a whole lot of knowledge on that, but I know they have stuff going on up there. But sure, I mean, mostly what I get are ghost stories. I've got 4 ghost books. I'm up to Ghost 4 the Eastern Shore. People don't tell me much about monsters, Bigfoot or Big Cat, but they love to tell me that they had their house is haunted or this happened to them, and something kicked me out of bed. I'm like, wow, And I get whole families. It's not just one person. You think one person, okay, well, maybe they got an issue. But when the whole family tells me that they see the ghost talk to them, ghost kick the sister-in-law out of bed, they can't all be nuts. Oh yeah, okay, Jeff, yeah, got you.
Yeah, Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff Darrington, yeah, he says he's got ghosts, Bigfoot. Yeah, well, that family I saw at the comic convention, they did tell me their house was haunted also. So they hit 3. They had a triple bag there with ghosts, Bigfoot, and big cats.
Yes, wow. All they need is another cryptid, and they're
That's
set.
all. Yeah, they need Lizard Man or
And
Jersey Devil or something.
UFO.
You know, and that's speaking of Jersey Devil,
Yeah.
every year the middle school near me, they do one unit um, to about cryptids to encourage critical thinking. So it's kind of neat. They do something that the kids like, that's interesting to the kids, and they create a whole unit of critical thinking. They break them into groups. Each group takes a cryptid,
Hmm.
and they do a report and a trifold, and they have uh, a show at the end of the unit. And I always get up and give them a keynote speech, and have potluck dinners, lots of pizza and stuff like that. And I get to see all their displays, and they cover Mothman and the
Really?
Jersey Devil and the Bottomless Snowman and the Flatwoods Monster,
Yep.
Jackalopes, things like that. Dogman encounters. Nobody has told me about a dogman down here. We have coyotes. That's as close as we get. But dogman, no. Can't say that we've had any that I know of.
Yeah.
Again, I'm just one guy. I'm a one man person. Have I had a personal experience with Bigfoot? No. Um, like I said, I've been through a lot of places. I have seen um, trees that are bent, like in an L shape. You know,
Yeah.
I was down west of here, where it's pretty heavily wooded and can be marshy at times. And there was a whole row along this ditch bank of these trees, and they were all in this L shape, where they would go down and then across and then down again. It
Wow.
was strange. I've never seen anything like that before.
Was that the tree trunk itself
Yeah,
that
the
was
trunk itself,
okay?
exactly. I
All
mean,
right.
these
I've
were trees
seen.
about maybe 6, 8 inches in diameter or more, and they were just bent like, straight down for the most, and then about a foot or two off the ground, they'd come sideways and then down again, all by
Interesting.
this ditch bank.
Yeah.
Back, and it was next to a house site that was back in the woods. That they told me it was an old camp meeting ground, and we went back there, and that's what we saw.
Now, do you know if that area used to be in a Native American encampment area or anything like that that you would?
Native Americans were all over here. We find Native American artifacts all up and down along the riverbanks.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, I've found them just walking along, metal detecting. I'll see one on in a field. But yes, there were. I mean, the area west of me is basically called Nanticoke, and the Nanticoke Indians were all over. And this was only maybe 10 miles, 10 miles in a straight line from my house.
Yeah.
So sure.
Yeah, I think that those trees, I've seen those trees
Mhm.
like that, only not as many, maybe two in
Well,
a
it was like a
area.
10 maybe,
And I think those have an association with Native Americans that the natives would deliberately shape young saplings
Okay.
for some reason, and I don't recall why. And as to these would be more modern, of course. So something else is forming them into that shape. So
Yeah,
that's
I'm not, like I say, no expert. Certainly not anthropologist or anything like that to
yeah.
know if it's Native American or not. And the remaining Native American tribes are a little distant. There are a few tribes that are still in existence down here,
Mhm.
because I go to the next Wawash powwow for the last couple of years, and but that's on the other side of the Nanticoke River from here, so that's close. Um, But yeah, but we do have, you know, we do have a strong Native American population down here,
Yeah.
especially in Dorchester County, where you can tell these, of course, I think somebody said about 30% of the East Coast Americans have some DNA from Native Americans
Yeah.
or so. And, even my family on my mother's side, certainly, um, there was Native American ancestry there, but I've never had a DNA test. So I can't swear to it. I just know tradition.
Okay.
Now, of course, my father's side, being from Puerto Rico, he had the Carib Indian,
Oh, yeah.
ancestry in that. So, yeah. Um, yeah. Oh, Muddy Creek. Yeah, you're right. We're just a bunch of mutts, and I
That's
love it. But yeah. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I don't see this area as being any more or less spot for Bigfoot than any other part of
yeah.
the country. Dogman story in Pocomoke. Well, I haven't heard it. I'd like to get some details on that. I have heard about a certain trail down near Pocomoke that has some terrible psychic oppression down there, evil spirits or something. And I've heard reports from down the Pocomoke area that Tecumseh himself came up from the south to try to recruit warriors from the Pocomoke area.
Oh.
So, yeah, Pocomoke remains a hot spot down there. Not too far away from Pocomoke, across the Virginia line is Red Hills. There's a cryptid thing in Red Hills called the Red Hills Devil. When I talked to that class about the Jersey Devil, I said, we got we've got the Red Hills Devil down there, because you can actually Google Red Hills Devil, Accomack County, and it'll turn up that people have cited this thing about 3 feet tall, with pointy ears, and his bottom half is hairy. His top half looks normal, like one of these pan, guys would play the little pipes, have horns on their head, like
Yeah.
that. Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, that's the best way to try it. But I've been up and down Red Hills because there was,
Fascinating.
well, it was a resort there. There was a camp meeting ground there, metal detector. I've been all up and down, back and forth in Red Hills, in the woods, deep in the woods. Never seen it. Never
Now,
seen it.
what
But that
are
doesn't mean it's not there.
yeah? What are the reports on that creature?
Just that people see him running through the grass. Just if he sees them, he runs away. Timid little fellow.
Oh,
So, but
fascinating.
it's another cryptid sighting.
Yeah.
Like Chesapeake Sea Monster in the Chesapeake Bay. That's people claim they've seen Chesapeake. Okay, we have to get Andy an old line.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, love to come on. Just give me a shout.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I
I get
Jeff about that, and yeah,
sure,
he and Jerry want to get you on their podcast.
sure. I will tell you that some of the reports of Monsters of Maryland came from the old Strange magazine. I don't know if any of you Marylanders on here remember Strange magazine back in the 80s and 90s. They ran a series on Monsters of Maryland, and they also were the ones that broke the story about the hoax of the Selbyville Swamp Monster. You can still go to Strange Magazine's website, and I don't have it off the top of my head, and buy back issues. Also, if you're in the Rockville, Maryland area near DC, if you go to the game shop called Dream Wizards, supposedly they sell the back issues out of there. And that's where I got some of my information was from that. The two fellas that ran that back in those days, one was Mark Torvinsky. He was a regular contributor to Fate magazine.
Oh,
If you remember Fate magazine, he
yes.
was a regular columnist in there,
Wow.
and he died a few years before my book Mysteries came out, which was so the book came out in '08, so he died a few years before that, throat cancer. And his partner was Mark Opsasnick, who wrote a biography on Jim Morrison, of all things.
Oh, wow.
I actually talked to him about the story, and he gave me some of the, updated me on the details and things like that. The other best account about that can be found in Ed Okonowitz's book, and he's dead too, just died last year, Monsters of Maryland, which I didn't have available when I wrote Mysteries. It came out a few years ago, but it covers, even though it's Monsters of Maryland, it covers Selbyville Swamp Monster. So, and all about, and he interviewed Fred Stevens and his wife and all that about the hoax.
Mm-hmm.
So that book, if you can find it, I got mine local Barnes and Noble. It's a little book, it's worth finding.
Yeah.
Because
So,
I'm big on finding stuff, and I
okay.
see people are putting up on how to get mine. Yeah, you can
Yes.
get all my books on Amazon. So I've got 8 books in the Eastern Shore series. If you no matter what you like, whether it's mysteries, ghosts, treasure hunting, pirates of the Eastern Shore, I got you covered. Um, there you go. My Iron Bigfoot Digest. Yeah, I'd sure like to see that. That would be a good book. You have to send me a link on that, Jeff. Training in we were told Fort Bragg had the biggest satanic community. I wouldn't doubt it. I would not doubt it. One of the going back to the Pocomoke Forest, there was an old church on the road that goes through Pocomoke Forest, where the old iron furnace used to be. And that church was one of 3 churches on the Eastern Shore that was called the Church of the Heavy Bible, because the legend was if you took the Bible off the pulpit and tried to take it out of the church, it would become so heavy that you'd drop it.
Oh,
And the church that was there got moved to what they call now Furnace Town, where this iron furnace was built in the early 1800s. It went bust. It was refining bog ore from the nearby bog there in the forest, but it was so impure he couldn't make enough money off of it. It would cost him more to refine it than he could sell it, so it went bust. But they've turned the whole community into a village that you can go down there and explore and visit, and they have events. They have a Renaissance festival there. It's really nice, and that's but it's haunted too. So I've been on at least a dozen paranormal investigations down there, because there was a fellow that lived there. His name was Samson Harmon. He was a free African American. He lived to be 100. Now this is again 1800 to 1890s. He could outrun a deer, and he loved to wrestle. And he was made into a fictional character in the book Entailed Hat, which is about Patty Cannon's gang in Delaware. But the point is, they believe he's still haunting it. Because he was the last resident. After everybody else left, he stayed there, tended the garden. He had a little cat,
mm-hmm.
And so he didn't want to leave. They took him to the local poorhouse, and he got so depressed he died. And they say he's still haunting there. I was on this ghost hunt, and this woman said, I just saw somebody over there. And I'm like, where? Right over there. I said, well, I don't see anybody. She said, but he was there. I said, okay, I believe you, but I just don't see him. So in the old museum, there's a statue of Samson sitting on a barrel with his hoe. So we go in the old museum, and as soon as she sees Samson's statue, she said, that's him. That's who I saw.
Oh, wow.
So,
Now I have a question, in correlation with that. Is there a possibility that some ghost reports from outdoors can really be Bigfoot?
maybe so. I have one of the weirder quasi ghost cryptid stories I heard that I put in my last book, Ghost Fort Eastern Shore, is called the Bone Cruncher or Bone Digger, whatever he was. Hold on, got to read my own book to remember something.
That's okay.
Mine's a terrible waste thing to waste, is it?
Tell me about it.
Where are you at here? The Grave Digger, that's what he was called. Anyway, he supposedly, and there's my illustration from the book. He supposedly
Wow.
digs up graves and gnaws on the bones.
Oof.
And my reporter told me that his friend or his brother, one or the other, was down this way, down the road from me, spotlighting deer, which of course is illegal, but he was spotlighting deer, and the spotlight hit these red eyes. And it was about 6 feet tall, and it was black. Somebody asked me about black Bigfoot. It was black and had a bushy tail, though.
Okay.
And he, discretion is a better part of valor. So he took it on the lam. And after seeing that thing, he was like, I think I left the laundry going or something. It was out of there.
Possible dog man there.
Dog, yeah, well, could be. See, now there. It quite possibly is a dog man.
Yeah.
But, and another lady saw the same thing that was a friend of this reporter a few miles to the east of here at another abandoned place. It was an old camp from the 1930s, one of those project camps that they had in those days, and they saw the same thing over there. So I agree with Muddy Creek. Don't do that. But could they be? I don't know. Back there, when I was talking about the church with the heavy Bible, and they moved that church, the graveyard stayed there. The graveyard's still there, and there's a path that runs behind that graveyard into the forest, and it's supposed to be a hiking trail, but there's been persistent rumors for decades that witches or Satanists or somebody hangs all out down there. So, and I've also heard that witch story was a cover for a meeting of the Ku Klux Klan to keep people from getting too close. But even today, if you go, there's a YouTuber, local YouTuber from Delaware named CJ Faison, Faison. He's gone down there and he's found all kinds of stuff. Chem lights hanging from the trees that are still glowing down back in there. So is, the activity still going on? Something going on back there, it's an interesting graveyard. There's this graveyard there's a grave there called the Bleeding Grave, because it was broke, and whatever they used to put it back together, it leaks this reddish stuff.
Ooh. And
there's a tombstone there that says, if you couldn't see me when I'm alive, don't come to see me when I'm dead. So,
not bitter.
No, not a bit. And we did have one paranormal experience. I was with a group. It was 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning at this graveyard. And the group was taking photographs, and I'm just, hanging around. And all of a sudden, this horrible screeching sound comes out of the woods across the road. It was like 1,000 tomcats going off at one time, just screaming and screaming and screaming. And nothing came out. It's just the screaming. I got that, I said, look, in the name of Jesus, would you stop that noise? And it stopped.
Interesting.
And I've heard everything from bats to screech owls. So I can't tell you what it was, but it was horrible. Whatever. name of Jesus has power, I guess, because
It does.
it thoroughly. Well, another story where I used something similar. I was down in Snow Hill, which is at the other end of the Pocomoke Forest, and there's a haunted place there that used to belong to this doctor, and his son committed suicide, and he cut his throat, and his room at the house, well, they turned it into a bed and breakfast. So the room that he occupied when he was alive always has electrical issues. The radio's turning off and on, lights flickering, stuff like that. Downstairs in the bar, plates would fly off the wall. And one lady they hired as a bartender, she came up to the guy, and bartender told me this story. He said, yeah. So we hired this girl, and she said, is this place really haunted? And he said, yeah, it is. She said, I don't believe it. And a chair lifted up off the ground, hit her in the back.
Oh,
but I was with a friend of mine. We were going to make a video documentary. So we were out back where JJ's naming the ghost, JJ's room, and he turned his video camera up to the window, and the camera went off, stopped, died. He put the camera down, camera came back up, turned the camera up, turned off again. This happened 3 times. Finally, I said, in the name of Jesus, would you leave this camera alone? Stayed on. Who knows?
Well, power in the name.
Power of the name, exactly. So it worked. But as far as satanic stuff, yeah, there's some around here. I was Texas Roadhouse one time. There was one of these old Dodge. I forget the name of the car. Looked sort of like an old timey van, and he had his Satanist sticker on the back window. It was this middle-aged, kind of normal-looking middle-aged couple. They were in there having their stay, and they had this, member of the Church of Satan proudly displayed on their back window.
Wow.
So yeah, they're around. They're around, and I understand that they used to meet. There used to be a place here in Salisbury that they used to meet downtown because religious freedom.
Yes.
They can't not let them. So
right.
But I guess we're kind of drifting off the subject.
No, that's okay, because sometimes, even though my channel is geared more towards Bigfoot and other cryptids, we also talk about ghosts and UFOs. And
UFOs, we got those too. There have been several sightings here, and right across the bay is Calvert Cliffs nuclear power plant, and there was a big rash of sightings over there back in the 80s. And that's when I first got to know Phil Imbrogno, that wrote Multidimensional Universe, because he wrote an article in there about UFOs and nuclear power plants. And I asked him, I said, what about Calvert Cliffs? He says, yes, I've had reports from Calvert Cliffs, that they may draw energy from the nuclear power plants.
Wow.
Who knows? I've had reports of UFOs, Pennsylvania. I forget what town because I didn't put it in my book, but I got a note somewhere where the police were chasing this UFO recently. This is fairly recent times.
Okay.
The guy told me the story that they were chasing this UFO in Pennsylvania, and my teller was an ex-army officer, and when he was stationed in West Germany, they had a glowing fellow in a strange suit show up at their base, and they don't know how he got in, and it wasn't the guy posing in a suit, so
wow.
You don't know. But yes, we have had UFO sightings around here. That's one thing a friend of mine and I, we did see back when we were middle school or junior high, they called it in those days. We did see this glowing dish-shaped object, and we followed it, as best we could back, because we had to cross fields and all of this, and it was just got to a point where my memory was, and my talked to my friend about this, that while we were watching, something came out of it and fell in the field in front of us. And that's when we decided it was time to go.
Ooh.
And the sun had gone down. It was still glowing. It's still light, but the sun had gone down. And by the time we got I guess 200 or 300 yards back to his house, it was fully dark. That's how long we had been there studying this thing.
Wow.
And then the next day, we took another friend of mine, and the three of us went back to look at that, where it all happened and all. And my friend said, "Do you remember the thing we saw in the tree?" And I said, "No, I don't remember." Then I thought about it, and I'm like, yes, there was something in this tree at the edge of the woods, some object, and we wouldn't go near it. That the remembrance that all three of us, and the other guy was 3 years older than us. None of us would approach it. I don't know. We turned around and left. I don't remember, but it was like when I'd forgotten about it until he told me about it. But yeah, so.
Now, where was that at?
This was down in Somerset County, right down here, about half hour from my house, or my old house. So it's where I lived, grew up. So I knew the area.
Yeah.
But that was something that was beyond us. And other people claimed, to have seen them. There was a couple out necking down here, one down there, and whatever it was, it cast this glow that just lit up the whole area around their car. That was back in the late 60s, 70s, something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got UFOs. Not too many things we don't have. not except for dinosaurs. I guess there's no surviving dinosaurs down here.
Not yet.
Yeah, I haven't found any yet. We've found lots of fossils, but shows, but no.
Yeah, Jeff says there's a cop in Cecil County that chased the UFO late 90s, early 2000s.
Yep, it's just north of me, so yeah, it's right top of the bay, up that way. So sure, any triangle object with red lights. Not that I have been told. They've all been disc-like that people have seen. So that. And mine was, I guess you'd say it was disc shaped, but it was glowing. So I couldn't tell any details.
Interesting.
Pennsylvania here, but we are number 7. Yeah, I don't doubt that. I don't doubt that. That stuff that happened up there, I forget the name of the area where the UFO Bigfoot connection was a hot spot.
Chestnut Ridge.
Chestnut Ridge. I knew it was a ridge. I can remember which was.
Yeah. I live near there and I've had some Bigfoot experiences there also.
Sure. I do not doubt it a bit. Of all the things, never having seen a ghost. I've been on investigations where strange things have happened that I can't explain, like toilet flushing in front of me.
Well,
I said, "Does this happen?" "Oh, no." I said, "Well, it just happened to me." Then I found out that there's a whole spate of those down here. That there was,
really?
There was a county office building was built over the site of this old funeral home, and the toilet flushed in there at 6 o'clock every morning, just for no apparent reason. And then where I work now, Commission on Aging, our original building was on the grounds of a tuberculosis hospital, and the toilet would flush in there, but they blamed it on a ghost that they knew the fellow's name about that. So that's a thing down here is self-flushing toilets. Believe it or not.
Yeah.
If it hadn't happened to me, I would. But it happened to me.
Yeah.
So it's weird. But we've heard some stuff in the bushes down there at Furnace Town because it's surrounded by the swamp. No, yeah. No, it's faced the right way. Sorry. But you know, but things seem to happen. You know, I go to these investigations, and you know they've all got a whole arsenal of K2 meters.
Oh,
So we were in that church, the Church of
hmm.
the Heavenly Bible, which had been moved, and we are in there, and there was a special needs kid in there with his family, and the K2 meters went off around him,
Oh,
and just went. I mean, just went all the way over all the time, back and forth, back and forth. And he just thought it was great. He was just sucking up the notoriety, you know, until next time I saw his parents, they said, "Oh yeah, something followed us home, kept messing with our TV."
oh
So,
no.
yeah, so that happened.
Oh
Yeah,
my. Yeah,
but
whenever
yeah,
you go to places like that, you have to be so careful and
yeah, yeah, I know. And one of the more bizarre things that I put in my last ghost book was over in Worcester, adjacent Worcester County to the east. Um, There was a lady that had a tribe of 3-foot Native Americans in the woods behind her that would beat the drums all the time. And
little people.
yeah, but they were Native
Interesting.
Americans,
Yes.
you know.
Now,
Uh,
what county was that?
that was Worcester County. It's
Worcester.
in my book, Ghost 4. Yeah, okay,
Okay.
all that. The Gravedigger, and some of the other stuff, but that's definitely in there.
I would put that in your cryptid book because also if you write another one where
Got
you
another Cryptid book. I'm probably going to write one more paranormal book. My next one's going to be Warriors of the Eastern Shore. I'm going to talk about military figures here on the shore
okay.
because we had a lot of ties and
Mhm.
conflicts and stuff like that, and battles that took place down here and things like that.
Yeah. Oh
Matter of
my.
fact, one Revolutionary War battle down here actually has a ghost story attached to it, and that is the headless ghost of Cooch's Bridge. The Cooch's Bridge is up near Newark, Delaware, so that's an easy drive for you guys
Yeah.
to come right on over. And they have a nice little museum there called the Pencader Museum, where they have a whole display about the Battle of Cooch's Bridge, and they have a sign for this tavern with the ghost of Cooch's Bridge on it, and so it's a really nice little place down there. Plus, they got a great farmers market not too far away at Newcastle that has lots of Amish stuff, and they have a used bookstore and all kinds of things. So, and big flea markets. So, okay, what we got here? I walked all the way across City Hall to use the other restroom. Okay. Um,
What's
I don't know.
that, Vicky? That's Miss Vicky on Muddy Creek.
Oh, yeah.
She's in North Carolina.
She's having haunted toilets.
Apparently so.
I guess so. Well, all right. So maybe it's not just an Eastern Shore thing. I didn't know, but
Yeah. Now, can you elaborate a little bit more on the little people, the 3 foot high Native
yeah.
Americans?
Oh, they're right here. Yeah, and I know the lady. I've known her for 20 some years that has the property. And she, here it is, Tiny Tribe. I call them the Tiny Tribe of White and Ghosts. Yeah, I've known this lady. Her name's Sharon, and she, she's told me that she had not one ghost, but a whole tribe of Cherokees. But there was an odd twist. They were all tiny, no more than 3 feet tall. Um, I've talked about Native American ghosts in the past, but I've never had a whole tribe, and
Yeah.
certainly not 3 feet tall. So she said they were active and mischievous, and
Yeah.
she said they would steal items,
Mm-hmm.
which I've got another ghost story about a Native American that would do that,
Mm-hmm.
and uh, beat on their drums and do all sorts of crazy antics. Apparently, they haunted the nearby woods and where they would raise a ruckus and then come in her house and poke around. She said eventually she got used to them, but their activity never slackened. So she decided to buy a house another house and live up there.
Oh,
So, um, so next time I see her, I'm going to ask her if they're still down there.
yeah. Did she describe them
Just
individually, or
no, she just said they were 3 feet tall and they were Cherokees.
now
How she knew they were Cherokees, I don't know, but
perhaps because of their headwear, or the way that
could
they
be.
wore their garb or something?
Could
But
be. I'll see her again. I'm not. I'll find out.
yeah, those aren't ghosts. I can tell you that right now. They are not ghosts.
Okay.
They are we call them little people.
Nope. Okay.
And there are a lot of them all over the United States. There's a huge, a lot of them up in the Allegheny National Forest area here in Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
I've read reports out in Oklahoma. Now, out there, out west, they are more nasty. They are known as man eaters out there.
Mm-hmm.
They'll take a person down and drag them away. But here in the eastern United States, they are more mischievous. But the thing is, you have to treat them with respect. Give them gifts of tobacco, and
Okay.
respect their territory. Like I tell people, to respect the Bigfoot territory. Also, all the time, respect them. But the little people, especially, because if you show any type of disrespect, they can get nasty.
Yeah,
But
imagine so. Well, I'll see her at the powwow. I think she was at the powwow last year, so I'll
okay,
probably see her up there.
yeah,
Um,
but they're not a ghost.
okay. Well, it's I had them lumped in with the story that I heard from one here in Wycomico County. These folks moved in a house like in Poltergeist that was built on top of a Native American cemetery, and the ghost would steal stuff all the
Yeah.
time, and jewelry or keys or stuff like that. And the daughter apparently would have this annoying habit. He wouldn't show up in the mirror, but when she turned around, he'd be there. And she was like, "Could you please give me some space?"
Mm-hmm.
So the mother would have to beg and beg, and the mother and the daughter told me the story, so they confirmed, what's going on, and eventually they'd find him, but they brought in a psychic, and they told the psychic, "Ask them why they're stealing my jewelry," and she says, "Oh, we're not stealing it. She must have mislaid it." That was the answer they got. So
Oh, jeez.
yeah, yeah. But I've had spirit animals. People tell me about that they've seen. These are Native Americans that told me that they saw these ghostly
Mhm.
animals.
Okay.
And I had one lady that she was in one of these. She went down to one of these. I think it was one of these sweat lodges, but it was down the Eastern Shore of Virginia, and they saw a girl in white buckskin with the fringe thing, and you know she wasn't part of them.
Oh,
They saw her; she was beautiful, long black hair, wearing this real whitish buckskin, but nobody recognized her. She just kind of disappeared.
wow.
So you just never know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, that's right. Interesting. Fascinating.
yeah. The one of the more bizarre cryptid things. This fella, him and his brothers were young, and they were in the bed one night, and through the wall. This is one more of these more psychic things. Through the wall of their house came these disembodied green furry feet, and they walked right past them, right out the other wall.
Oh,
And
jeez.
it scared them to death. They went downstairs and blamed their parents, saying that they were playing some kind of joke on them. But then they never saw it again. But there was this pair of green furry feet that went across the room. And this fella, he went up, he bought a house in Maine that's really haunted. It's so bad that if they start making a lot of noise, he threatens to exercise. And nobody will stay in that house. If he has visitors come over, once the noise starts, they're gone. You know,
Yeah.
and so, yeah. Um, is this all a connected phenomena? Sometimes I wonder if it's all the ghosts, the UFOs, the Bigfoot. Is this all some interconnected phenomena?
It's a possibility.
No, shadow people. Yeah, I had a fella, he's dead now, talked about shadow people all the time. But, I never saw any, don't know anybody else that ever saw any. But this fella, he ran back in the days before internet really got going. He had a site that he talked about that. But so we're talking about late 80s.
Mm-hmm.
But he's now dead. So I don't know it. That sort of thing. He went over the edge and ended up converting to be a Baha'i to get away from all that stuff.
Oh, wow.
He was big into it, and I think it just overcame him. But yeah. I mean, we don't know what these things are. I mean, we can call them ghosts, we can call them Bigfoot, we can call them demons, call them whatever you want to call them. We don't know enough about them to really define them. We just know that it's a phenomena. It exists. Not
Mm-hmm.
everybody that sees one is crazy.
Right.
Not everything is a misidentification. Because I've had reports from doctors, from politicians, right on up to state senators,
Mm-hmm.
preachers' wives, postal employees, sheriff deputies, city police officers, firemen, even a mayor. They're all nuts. No, they can't all be nuts. So, what is going on? That's the question I ask every time. What's going on?
Yeah.
And when I talk to the kids, I start off by saying, "What if? What if there's these things?" And then I wrap it up by saying, "Why not? Why not? Why not?" People get, and of course, my, we're a deeper religious community down here. And so I get no end of people when they go up and they look at my display and they see Ghosts of the Eastern Shore. A couple of them will get real righteous and they'll say, "Oh, the only ghost I believe in is the Holy Ghost." Yeah, well, I believe the Holy Ghost too. Doesn't mean something else isn't here.
Yes. Yes.
What it is, and I'll get other people that will accept the phenomenon,
Mm-hmm.
but will put the whole thing down to demonic influence.
Yeah.
That they're demons. They're not ghosts. They're demons. They're not Bigfoot. They're demons. They're not whatever you name it. UFOs.
Yeah.
Demons. And,
Yeah. I get that a lot also. And,
So and I go right back. Well, maybe so, but I don't know. Nobody knows.
yeah.
For sure, except that something is going on.
Right.
Like the Bible says, we see through glass darkly.
Mm-hmm.
And that one day we shall know, even as we are known. So,
Yeah.
I just hold on to that promise because I got a list of questions.
Absolutely. Same here. Yeah. You have to go into this, at least I do, prayerfully.
Yes.
And, asking for discernment, that, okay, is.
I ask for protection. I'm like, whatever is here.
Yeah.
Lord, I don't want it to come home with me. Keep it there.
Yes. Leave it there.
In one group from the Western Shore, they say a prayer before every investigation.
Yeah.
I reprinted it in one of my books, either Ghost 2 or Ghost 3, but that they pray this prayer every time.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I tell people, I said, people in the Bible believed in ghosts.
Yeah.
I said, what did King Saul do? What did King Saul do when he wanted to know who was going to win the battle? He went to the witch of Endor. What did she do? She called up the spirit of Samuel. What was he? you know,
Yeah.
and then people will say, well, it was a spirit. It might not have been Samuel. I said, it says it was, So, was it a ghost? I don't know. When Jesus walked on the water and came to the boat, they thought he was a ghost. They were scared.
Yeah.
It didn't say he was a ghost, but they thought he was. So, and then my final one is when Peter was in prison, the book of Acts. Herod put him in prison and had him chained between two guards. And the angel came and broke his chains and he went home. They didn't want to let him in. They thought Herod had killed him, and that was his angel, as they called it, had come to visit him. So, So the belief is there. The belief has always been there. The belief is in the Bible. So if you're a Bible believer, you have to accept that there was a belief, in something, and nowhere in the Bible does it say they're not real.
Right.
There's nothing says there's no such thing as ghosts.
Mm-hmm.
You say there's such things as demons, and as you know, it's that if you don't treat them with respect, like the 7 sons of Sceva, the vagabond exorcists that they talk about in the book of Acts.
Mm-hmm.
They went to exorcise this demon and said, in the name of Jesus and Paul, and the demon says, Jesus I know, Paul I know, but I don't know you. And he beat them all up and tore their clothes off and kicked them out.
Yep.
So you got to respect, you've got to protect, and you just you can't go in this casually.
Absolutely not.
You can't be. That's the worst thing you can do is go in this phenomenon as a dilettante, or just too many people have been lured in with Ouija boards and stuff like that, and they open a door that probably should have stayed shut.
Yeah, absolutely.
So so I hope hope you guys out there are okay with us talking a little bit about that, because to me it's all one thing.
No,
it's a big if you accept if you accept God, Jesus, and all that's in the Bible, you're already accepting the supernatural.
Yes. Well,
what aspects these things represent, I can't, I'm not wise enough to know.
Yeah, we speak about, we tie in our faith, our Christian faith with what's going on with our research with Bigfoot, with UFOs and so on. So it's not unusual for us to. In fact, a few weeks ago, I had a pastor from a church on the podcast, and he was speaking about the Nephilim.
Oh yeah.
And so on, as as possible, Bigfoot, that they're the ancestors of the Nephilim, possibly, or something Nephilim-like, similar.
There's no reason to think why not. I mean, nobody said that the Nephilim were wiped out completely. They were wiped out in Gaza, by David and his soldiers, and there were a bunch of these guys that were 8-9 feet tall, 6 cubits in a span. If a cubit's 18 inches and a span is 9, then it's roughly 6.5 books. 9 or 9.5 feet tall, which is not unusual.
Yeah.
So, Goliath was 6 cubits in a span. He was about 9 feet tall. There have been people that, born in more modern times that have been 9 feet tall.
Yeah.
So why not? I mean, everybody remembers pro wrestler Andre the Giant. He was nearly 8 feet tall.
Yeah.
And there have been men and women both that were the top 9 feet. So sure, why not?
Right.
I was going to put the Nephilim in a book I was writing my cousin is after me to finish that book. She says, "You've got to finish that book."
Oh, yes, please.
I
Yeah.
was going to do an end times story with the Nephilim, and she said,
Ah.
"Got to finish it." I'm like, okay, maybe next book.
Yes. Well, whenever you finish it, make sure you let me know. We'll bring you back on to talk
Okay.
about it also.
Okay. Well, yeah. Oh, yeah. I'll love to come back on and talk about whatever you got going on, because somebody up here in the chat said that, all connected.
Yeah.
There's a book by a fellow named Harper, Harpur, called Demonic Reality. It's not demonic, it's DAI, Demonic Reality, where he believes that all this phenomena is intertwined. And he goes through the fairies, the fairy traditions, leprechauns, Bigfoot, ghosts, and UFOs, and tie it all together. So thank you, Jeff. Just give me a holler.
Yeah.
I'm on Facebook. Feel free to reach out. So
I'll send him your link.
yeah. Lavon, thanks. I can't explain any other way.
Yeah.
Muddy Creek, thanks. But there's something going on. There's something that we don't know is going on. Yes, Muddy Creek. There's a nice book called Giants. It's an oversized paperback, and it traces all the historical giants that we know about. So can't remember the name of it. I got it back in the bookcase somewhere, but yeah, there is such book get, and I know you all read Lou Marzulli because he's a big Nephilim guy.
Oh my! I
Got
would love
one of his books.
Yeah.
And that's a good book to
Yeah.
read on that. But yes, why not? Yeah, that's why I ask the kids every year. Why not?
Mm-hmm.
It's something going on. People don't want respectable people don't want to talk about it, because they don't want to be seen as crazy, or it shakes the narrow faith that they have.
Yeah.
They see, if it's not in the Bible, it ain't real. But yeah, they talk about unicorns and behemoths and stuff like that in the Bible, and cockatrices in the Bible, and that goes in one ear and out the other. But when you talk about Bigfoot or ghosts or something like that, oh no, it's evil spirits, it's demons.
Well, if it's not in the King
James, who knows? Yeah.
Then it's not real.
Yep. Oh yeah, Muddy Creek. We have an expression down here. It's called Eastern Shore crazy. So yeah, we do that because and there, we've had sightings of the ghost man. Goat man up in Dorchester County. The Greenbrier Swamp. That's why I asked the guy what swamp he's talking about, because the Greenbrier Swamp up there has this goat man story, which I don't know what parts of him look like a goat. Over in Worcester County, we have the Cat Man. He was named so because he loved cats, but he's supposedly still haunting this graveyard near Frankfort, Delaware. There's actually a road called Catman Road that you go down, and then you'll see his graveyard off to one side, and that's where he shows up.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had eyewitness reports that saw didn't say exactly what it looked like because he was forming up when they got out of there.
Yeah.
But talk about pro wrestlers. There's a local Delaware pro wrestler called Dirty Sonny Deeds. He's got his own YouTube channel too. He went over there with his daughter to do an investigation, and something scared him so bad that he got in his van and drove off. I don't know what that was. Delaware cops don't play Muddy Creek, so you'll have to come down and steal it yourself. I've had too many. I've heard too many horror stories about Delaware cops, so I'm not messing with anything Delaware. But it does exist, yeah, and it's right there in Frankfurt. You can find it on Google Maps easily enough there in Frankfurt. But anyway, get back to the Greenbrier Swamp up there. That was the Goat Man, and then there's Big Liz. Big Liz was a slave. Her master was getting ready to go off to the Civil War, so he boxed up his treasure, had her carry it because she was big and strong, out to the swamp and bury it by this tree. And he cut her head off, threw her in the grave.
Oh.
And she haunts that part of the Greenbrier Swamp at DeCourcy Bridge Road. And I've had no end of people that tell me they've seen her there. So if you want a weird phenomena, go down DeCourcy Bridge Road in Dorchester County. That's out in the boonies, and if you don't see something out there, because your eyes need work.
Now, are there more than one Goat Man reports?
I've got one or two. It's a real obscure book called It Happened in Dorchester County by Bryce Stump. It's an oversized paperback, about as big as one of my books, about this size.
Mm-hmm.
And it covers the Goat Man, and it might have been the Cow Man in there, but and some ghost stories and things like that, and some haunted treasures. It can be found. It's a tough book to find. I have my copy of the cover's coming apart. That's because it's written like 1969. And he wrote another one called A Visit with the Past that has the Big Liz story in it, but it also has a story about the Wild Men of Andrews. And you think, oh, well, there's your Bigfoot story. No, they were just two mentally challenged fellas that they had issues.
Mm-hmm.
And they lived out in the bushes until they finally roped them in and put them in the sanitarium. But they were a phenomenon.
Yeah.
So, they're in Mystery. So yeah, Mysteries is the book. If you want to hear all about most of this stuff, Mysteries of the Eastern Shore, because I covered Big Liz, Bigfoot, Wild Men of Andrews, and UFOs and sea monsters, the whole nine, big cats, whole 9 yards. So yep, that's it. Yep. Follow me on YouTube. Follow me on Facebook. I usually am at shows around the area. If you're going to be in the neighborhood, by all means, come by. If you bought the book online, bring it to me. I'll sign it for you. I'm happy to do that. Because like I say, I'll be at the powwow in Vienna in September. I go to the National Outdoor Show in February, where I hear a lot of stuff over there.
Oh, I bet.
From the watermen and the muskrat skinners and all that sort of thing. So I'm here and there. Like I'll be in Greensboro, Maryland, which is maybe, I don't know, it's an hour or so drive from the Maryland line in June, giving a talk about Bigfoot and stuff and ghosts and all that. So just check me out if you feel like taking a cruise down. It's that time of the year when the beaches are open and there's lots to do down here. We have Ocean City down here, goes from 20,000 population to 300,000 in the summertime.
Wow. So,
there we go. We got a local Goat Man. Yeah, they get around, I guess. The prolific breeders. What do you want me to say?
No, Miss Vicki, that's I'm trying to remember where she's at. She's heck. Yeah, she's in North Carolina, in the Fayetteville area.
Okay, well, that's pretty down there. I've been down that way.
Okay, so apparently it was seen at Fort Bragg.
Bragg, okay. Well, so it's like a lot of stuff going on down to Fort Bragg. I don't know. I think I'll bypass that next time I'm down there. It's got a detour around,
You're not going to speak with the soldiers, huh?
No, I don't think so. No, but I've been down to Winston-Salem and places like that, and I think there's a Greensboro down there, something like that.
Yeah.
It's pretty down there. And I've been down to Roanoke and places like that, and the Lost Colony, all that sort of thing. So yeah, it's pretty country down there.
It really is. Now, I really haven't gone. I've been as far east in Maryland as Baltimore, and I'm trying to think, but
Mob Town, yeah, Charm City.
yeah, but yeah, mostly whenever I travel through Maryland, it's traveling through from like Hancock on
Yeah,
down.
you're on the Western Shore, but
Yeah.
yeah, we have a saying down here: there is no life west of the Chesapeake Bay. We always make fun of the Baltimore hunters when they come down here.
Oh,
Yeah, it's a popular place to hunt down here. We've had presidents come down here and stuff like that. To
yeah.
do hunting. And, so, but it's it was settled in the mid 1600s. The Eastern Shore was.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of drifted across from John Smith and Jamestown and all that, and kind of lodged over here, and so it's it goes back. Doesn't go back as far as the north up there, Vermont and Massachusetts, place like that, but it's mid 1600s because we found coins dating from 1600s here on treasure hunting. Yep.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This is I found from the 1600s even, and Spanish silver from the early 1700s.
Really?
No gold. I've not found no gold coins, gold rings, but no gold coins. So yes, it's a wonderful place down here, and they got the best crab cakes in the world.
Oh.
So,
Yeah. There we go.
So yeah.
Now you also have a book on the treasures.
That's about treasure hunting. That was actually my first book. And I talk about Big Liz in that because there's a treasure associated with her.
Okay.
But I do cover shipwrecks along the Atlantic coast and some techniques for how to get permission, how to do treasure hunting.
Oh.
And I followed up with a sequel. There's a Treasures 2 out that's all just metal detecting and stuff that we found.
Mm-hmm.
So those are, if you like adventure and finding treasure and stories about lost treasures and shipwrecks and pirates, they're good books to have. But if you really like adventure and pirates, then get Pirates of the Eastern Shore, because people don't realize it, but famous pirates like Blackbeard and Captain Kidd actually stopped here on the Eastern Shore.
Oh.
And spent some time. Captain Blackbeard was here twice.
Huh.
Once at the tip of Eastern Shore of Virginia, and once up in Delaware at Blackbird Creek. And a friend of mine that has a shipwreck museum on the Delaware coast, he excavated the site and found a sword there.
Oh.
So, but yeah, if you guys ever do get down to Fenwick Island, Delaware, there's a place called Discover Sea Shipwreck Museum. And I know the director real well. He's the guy, and you'll see stuff there that'll just knock your eyes out. If you like treasure, he's got bars of silver that are 90 pounds. Gold bars, coins, gold dagger handles, gold idols, all kinds of stuff that comes from shipwrecks.
Yeah.
And things like that. Cannons, cannonballs, swords, pistols. So nobody knows more about the East Coast treasure hunting and stuff like that than Dale. So if you're down on the coast, it's worth a trip in there. It's free. Just give them a donation or something. Drop $1 in the slot. And they've got a big gift shop. They carry all my books. So I can't say enough good things about them. But if Patty here likes metal detecting. Muddy Creek. Yeah, well, that's true. And that's also true here on the Eastern Shore. Supposedly we had a shipwreck at Chincoteague And that's where the Chincoteague ponies come from. And they do pony penning every July and sell off the excess. They auction them off to raise money for the local fire department. Matter of fact, the firemen that corral them are known as the saltwater cowboys.
Oh,
So,
wow.
so
Spanish
yeah,
things.
supposedly the ship came over Chincoteague and dropped in Chincoteague Bay, and that's where it wrecked. There was a guy who did a whole book called The Hidden Galleon about the search for the identity of that ship. So yeah, we've got that covered up here too.
Now, have you ever gone magnet fishing also?
No, I've always thought about it, but scared about what I'm liable to pull up.
Yeah.
But
Watched a few.
you know, people do it. They get all kinds of stuff,
Yeah.
bicycles and guns and knives and
Yeah.
you name it. But you know, there's not a whole lot of bridges here that are conducive to that. You know, but yeah, it's possible. I've just never done it. And but yeah, I mean, sure, why not? You know, you never know.
That's right. Find someone who does it and hook up with them. Try it.
Like I tell people, there's more stuff lost out in the water than there is on land. I mean,
Yeah.
if the planet's 3/4 water, there's more stuff out there than there is, you know, in the dirt. And all it takes is a big storm to wash stuff up on the beach.
That's
My
for sure.
late father-in-law, his father was going down to the beach, and he met a black fella coming up the beach with 2 milk pails full of silver coins. And this has been an extremely low tide. The moon had caused this tide to go out, and these silver coins were scattered all over the beach. And this guy just picked them up, and he gave one to my father-in-law's father, and they used it for a teething ring. They put a ribbon through it. So fast forward to around 1990, I was down to Ocean City, and my father-in-law told me that it was near the Commander Boardwalk Hotel. So I was down to Ocean City for a pay treasure hunt, and I ran into a fella. He said, "Yeah, I went down to the beach. I found me a Spanish real." I'm like, "You did?" I said, "That's great." And he showed it to me. It was nice, you know. I said, he said, "Yeah, it was right outside where I was staying." I said, "Where are you staying?" He said, "Commander Boardwalk." So, yeah, that was stuff there. That was a shipwreck off of the Delaware coast by the Indian River Inlet Bridge. It was the Faithful Stewart. It had 260,000 Irish halfpennies on board this ship when it sank in barrels. And you know, the storms broke the ship up and the barrels broke, and they started washing up on the beach in the late 1800s. So, you know, it wasn't anything for people to walk along after a storm or something and pick up a handful of these.
Wow.
My friend Dale at the Shipwreck Museum, he must have 10,000 of them in a big pile in a display case. He's even got parts of the barrels with the coins still stacked up inside them.
Really? Oh,
So
wow.
you guys really need to go look
Yeah.
at Discover Sea Shipwreck Museum.
Yeah.
So, thanks for the kind words. Somebody threw up there for me. John Horton. I don't know. There was a singer named Bobby Horton. But no, I don't. Somebody told me I rocked here up here somewhere.
Yes. Yep. That's
I don't know about that, but you know, you live as long as I have, you collect a lot of stories. You know, my mother used to tell me stories my grandfather would tell about how he heard dogs barking. There were no dogs there. He met a headless man coming down the road, stuff like that. So, you know, and Mom always said he'd been drinking. She was a firm non-believer in ghosts. She did not believe in ghosts. She didn't want to believe in ghosts.
Oh.
So.
Yeah, usually people like that are hit the hardest whenever they do have a sighting or encounter with a whatever, a
Yeah.
ghost or whatever it is.
She did tell me a story about a fellow dying one time, and the falling star went over his house. That's how they knew he was dead. It was like a token, they call it. And somebody saw a white horse before somebody died and things like that. But I had a postmistress tell me that she had a farmer haunting her house. He could look in the kitchen window and see her. The only problem was the window was 8 feet off the ground. But he said she described me, had a beard, bib overhauls. I talked about it in the first ghost book, but she had a horse that died. She raised horses on the farm, and she looked out, and he got on this horse, the spirit of this horse, and just went up in the sky, and she never had any problem again. It was very weird.
Wow.
But she's a postmistress. Like I say, these people, you can't say that these people are crazy. I don't know. I believe she saw what she saw.
There we go. Let me bring up. There we go. There's
that's treasures. Yeah.
And
treasures was number one. Mysteries was number two. Then ghosts. Ghost 2. I think it was pirates. Then Ghost 3. Ghost 3.
There
Treasures
we go.
2. Yeah. That's Big Liz on the cover there, right dead center.
Oh, okay.
And the reason I painted her that way is because one of my eyewitnesses was going across the Corsia Bridge on a haunted hayride, and she said Big Liz come up out of the water right beside her as they crossed over the bridge. And I said, great, what'd she look like? She said, well, she was wearing a ratty black dress. She was holding her head in her hand. Her hair was real frizzy, and she had a blank expression on her face.
Oh, my.
So that was the best I could do. And people like that cover to say, reminds them of the old horror magazines back in the day.
Yeah. Now you do your own artwork.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, I tell people I hire the best artist I can afford. Then she says, you? I said, yeah. Except for Treasures and Mysteries. My old publisher picked out the pictures for that. But when I was doing that vampire story you told me about, Crimson Need, that you mentioned in the intro, I hated the stock cover that she put on there so much that's when I started painting my own covers.
Oh.
I said, I can do better than this, And so when I reissued Crimson Need after she retired and I got all the rights back, I did a new cover for it. So, and that's on Amazon too. There are a couple of science fiction novels and some other stuff, and a Civil War book. I know people like Civil War books, so I did write one book for Osprey on the battles of the Wilderness in Spotsylvania. So that was a fun book to write. I enjoyed that. I made 4 trips down there to the battlefields and walked them. I talked to the Rangers. I sourced photographs all the way to University of Kentucky to get photographs of the officers. I researched the orders of battle, everything I could find out about the battles, and I was happy because it's sitting at 4.5 stars on Amazon.
Wow.
Unfortunately, I got paid up front, so I don't get any royalties for it.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but that's okay. I got paid pretty generously for it. They were very generous. And I was going to do a sequel to it, and they had pushed these Civil War books for the 125th or 150th anniversary, or whatever it was, and they didn't sell.
Huh.
Yeah, the bottom just dropped right out. So
Wow.
I didn't get to do the sequel, which would have been the battles of North Anna and Cold Harbor. So that's as far as I got. But that's the only international book I've had that went worldwide.
Yeah.
But I enjoy doing the Eastern Shore books because I like writing about the Eastern Shore. So.
Yeah. Well, it's where you live and where you know.
Well, exactly. And like I said in an interview with somebody, an article, I said, I got this book by Stephen King called On Writing. And he says, write about what you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I knew about treasure hunting. That's what I wrote about,
There
you
you go.
know. And then my publisher said, well, what do you want to write about next? I said, well, I was thinking, I got all these collection of stories about weird, mysterious things. I said, I don't know, mysterious Eastern Shore or something like that. So in the back of the of Treasures, on the last page, I got it. She put, coming soon, Mistress of the Eastern Shore.
Uh-huh.
I said, well, I guess I better write the book.
Uh-huh.
So thanks to her, you got this.
And
You got this book, which is chock full of historical mysteries, UFOs, Bigfoot, ghosts, big fish, big cats, deals with the devil, witches, all kinds of stuff is in there.
Goat Man.
Well, I think there's. Well, anyway, the Walt Men of Andrews are in there, so
Ah.
yeah. So if you like unexplained phenomenon, this covers you. You've got it all right in that one book.
Well, guys, make sure you get on to, there's quite a few links in here that Pat has been linking. There's
Yeah, they've been spamming my pack.
yes. So
Yeah,
get on
thank you
there.
too.
Yeah, check out his books
Mhm.
and yeah, buy them all.
Yeah, please. Yeah, you can always
Buy the
use the
whole
money.
collection.
Yeah, help out starving artists like me.
Absolutely.
So
Now,
yeah, I mean, I got you can see behind me. That's my big poster that I got when I go on tour because it just it has all the title pictures, but that's just hard to see on here.
mhm.
Um,
Now then, let's flip this a little bit to Tarzan.
no, yeah,
Now, how did you get into Edgar Rice Burroughs?
oh, that's easy. When I was a kid, Mom used to buy me Tarzan comics. Back in the day when they were still owned them and Dell had them. So I'd read all those, and
Mhm.
and I loved it because there was a Ben Franklin store. I don't know if they have them up your way, but
Yeah.
back then they had a Ben Franklin store, and all they sold was Dell Comics and Classics Illustrated. So it was Tarzan and
Mhm.
Lost and Space Family Robinson and Magnus Robot Fighter and those. When Dell was bought out by Gold Key, it just kept right on. A Turok, Son of Stone, and all that. But I
Oh, yeah.
really like the Tarzan stories. And when they changed artists to this fellow named Russ Manning, the artwork was so fantastic that it just took me on there. So my cousin's grandfather had had the hardbacks back in the day, from back in the 20s and 30s. He had a whole
Mhm.
collection of them. And so, but my cousin didn't like Tarzan stories. So, so the first Edgar Rice Burroughs novel that wasn't a Whitman abridged version that I got to read was The Monster Men,
Oh.
which was his sort of take on the Frankenstein story.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was At the Earth's Core and Land That Time Forgot and those stories, and John Carter of Mars. It was a while before I got to read a Tarzan novel because he didn't read them. So I picked up the paperbacks and stuff like that and was reading those. And so because the only books that he'd bring home from his grandfathers were non-Tarzan.
Oh.
So is what it is. But I imagine I got them all. I got at least half of them in hardcover edition, stuff like that.
Yep.
But
Same
just
here.
it's just his storytelling was so powerful.
It really was. I agree.
And I was like 12, 13 years old reading these things. I was like, I wanted to believe these things were possible, that there were lost continents full of dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm.
That when I would go exploring parts of the woods that I wasn't familiar with, I was like, I wonder, if I can find something like that around here,
Yeah.
a lost civilization or something like that. But I was young and naive, and no, there wasn't anything.
Anything is possible.
Anything is possible. So yeah, but I still love reading Edgar Rice Burroughs stuff. I'll
Yes.
reread some of it every so often,
Mhm.
and like you said in the intro, I wrote a few stories and they went up, fan fiction, but we can't use Tarzan's name because it's trademarked.
That's right.
So if you go to the herb list website, you'll see them as Elmo of the Apes.
Okay, those are yours. Okay.
Right, yeah, because the first guy to play the adult Tarzan on screen was Elmo Lincoln.
Mm-hmm.
So we just call him Elmo, and avoid the trademark issues.
Uh-huh.
Because we went head to head with Egg Rice Press Incorporated about that, because their lawyer did not want us to use the name. Danton Burroughs was okay with it
Yeah.
because it was fan fiction, but the lawyer said, no, can't do it. It's copyright infringement. So use Elmo. If you go on Herbalist, it's Elmo.
Yeah.
So, and I like doing mashups. Since it was fan fiction, I could do what I wanted with it. So I had Tarzan in Jurassic Park. I had Tarzan Go Back in Time, and Conan the Barbarian, things like that. So
yeah, I love crossover books.
yeah,
And
that's what I wrote.
Fun. Yeah, Jurassic Park and
I even did a Tarzan Doc Savage crossover. That's one of my favorite stories.
Wow.
Because it's got Lava Opar in it, and she tries to vamp Doc Savage. and it's just, matter of fact, the Conan story's got Lava Opar in it too.
Now, I don't know if you remember way back on the old Herbalist, there was
a story.
Yes, we all had our avatars where we had we took off names.
Yeah, yours was Amar, I think.
Yeah, MR, which was the other name for Diane the Beautiful.
Right. From the Earth's Core. For those of you who are not Edgar Rice fans, Diane the Beautiful was a beautiful princess from the Earth's core. She was played by Carolyn Monroe in the movie version.
Yes.
Who just knocks you out if you see that.
Yep. Yep.
So, okay. So
yeah, there was
that was your avatar.
That was my avatar. And there was another fan. Her name was Edith. I can't remember her last name.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Her avatar was La Vopar.
Yes. And what was that guy's name? David something or other. He was an artist. Drew a picture.
David Burton.
David Burton.
Yes.
Great. He was a great guy. I miss him.
Yes.
He helped me greatly with the artwork on Ghost 2, the Eastern Shore. Mm-hmm. I would send the sketches to him, and he would say, no, this one's too busy. Change the composition a little bit. And then there's this one picture in there of this woman running through the bushes, and this guy with a big knife behind her, and he says, don't change a thing. It's perfect. But yeah, you guys were like a pair,
Yep.
Amar and La.
Yep.
And yeah, Bruce Bozarth, the webmaster.
Yes.
Yeah, he did some kind of story.
Yep.
With it.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, David Burton, he did drawings of both Edith and myself as our characters. And I think he was going to use mine in a magazine article, but I honestly can't remember if he did or not.
I don't remember. I just remember there was a story.
Yeah, he passed away, unfortunately.
Yeah, I used to talk to him
yeah.
all the time on emails, and he was so connected because, going back to Doc Savage, that pulp hero of the 1930s. The guy that painted a lot of paperback covers of Doc Savage, James Bama, he used as a model this fellow named Steve Holland, who played Flash Gordon on TV back in the 50s. I think it might have been German TV, but anyway, he was a model for a lot of different artists, Basil Gogos and James Bauman and others, because he had such a great, face. He looked like a whatever you want him to be, a hero or whatever. And so he was the model for Doc Savage, and he had him wearing his torn shirt.
There we go. That's the one that David did of myself.
Yeah, I remember it. But anyway, so David had that shirt. And after he died, it disappeared. I told his significant other, I said, yes, supposedly you had this torn shirt that James Bama used on Steve Holland for the Doc Savage covers, but don't know whatever happened to it.
Wow.
So
wow.
That would have been a real treasure. Because I think Joe DeVito had to use a different shirt when he did some of the later covers. So yeah, that was a great guy. I do miss him because he was always happy to talk about art. And
yes.
talk about the artists of the time, things like that, and it's just a shame.
Yeah, he had approached me. He said that he was going to do a magazine article on At the Earth's Core.
Mm-hmm.
And he said originally he was going to use Carolyn Monroe as his model. Beautiful. And then he saw my photo on there and he said, I have to do Mary. So
sure.
I said, absolutely. So so he had my input on her outfit and so on. But then he also did Edith as La of Opar, and he did the same.
I think she's weeping in her picture, isn't she?
Yeah, I honestly can't remember.
I think it's called La Weeping. I think I have it somewhere. Not on this computer, but
yeah. Oh my, I know it's been years.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I don't know if I have yours, but I know I'm pretty sure I've got the La Weeping picture.
Yeah.
And these are all Edgar Rice Burroughs characters we're talking about for the uninitiated. So if you haven't read any Edgar Rice Burroughs, you're missing out. That's all I can tell you.
Yes, absolutely. If you're into reading, it's the old fantasy books as well as, Tarzan of the Apes.
Sure. And he took me to Mars with John Carter, to Venus with Carson Napier, to the Earth's Core with David Ennis, It was great escapist fiction, and I just still love them now. I've got a whole shelf full of them, and then right below I got a whole shelf of Robert E. Howard.
Yes.
Bruce always told me, he says, well, you write like Robert E. Howard. I said, I do? He said, yeah, you do. I'm like, he says, that's not a bad thing. I'm like, okay. Was hoping I wrote like Edgar Rice Burroughs. I'll take it. I'll take it. And that was one of my perks. When my daughter graduated from college in California, she went to a makeup design school in Burbank. We went to go there for graduation and for Thanksgiving. And so, that was real close to Edgar Rice Burroughs Incorporated.
Oh.
So I talked to Chris Carey and I said, can I get over there? Can you do? He says, yeah, I got a little time for you. Why don't you come on over? Yeah, we picked a day. So my cousin, one of my cousins who lives down near San Francisco, he says, yeah, I'll take you over there. I'm like, okay, meet me. Because we were staying at an Airbnb near Burbank, right around the corner from Disney Studios. So he picks me up, drives me over there, and I just love it.
Oh,
All so I got to see all the original paintings for the paperback covers
yeah.
and
Oh, wow.
all the different, all kinds of stuff. Um, and his desk, that was his desk. And when Chris had to go out of the room for a minute, I gave Kevin my phone. I said, I'm going to sit at his desk, take my picture, because Chris didn't want us taking pictures in there, of that, because I forget why there was some stuff on there or something.
Mhm.
So while he was out of the room, I took a picture. So I actually have a picture of me looking like I'm writing something at Grace Brothers.
Oh, wow. Wow.
So, but yeah, that was a great tour. He was a great host. Kathy Wilbanks was there. Got to meet
Yeah.
her. Great lady. He got a copy of Gary Gravel's book. So Gods of the Forgotten, whatever it was. It was the John Carter book, first one of the new series, and it was a good book.
Yeah.
I felt like I was reading Burroughs when I read that book, just like Chris's book on the Moon Men.
Mhm.
Both of those really had that good vibe.
Oh,
I
wow.
guess we're boring the audience, I'm sure. Lord, about that movie, I think you're thinking of Clash of the Titans with the Pegasus,
Yeah,
not at your score. Carolyn Monroe was not, as I recall, in Clash of the Titans. She was in one of the Sinbad movies.
yeah, yeah,
I forget which one.
yeah.
But yeah, she was in there. And but no, that was Susan Penhaligon, I think, was in Clash of the Titans. I can't
I think so, yeah. And
remember.
Carolyn
Well,
Monroe in Clash of the Titan, not Clash, the Sinbad, that was with Patrick Wayne.
Patrick Wayne. Yep,
Yeah.
yep. I knew him and John Philip Law played the Sinbad in the last couple of Sinbad movies,
Hmm.
because there was Eye of the Tiger and I think
Yeah.
Golden Voyage was the other one. So I always love those Harryhausen special effects in those
Oh my
movies.
God.
Um,
Fantastic. Just
but,
amazing work.
yeah, I just love that stop motion animation.
Yeah.
I think I've watched just about all his movies,
Hmm.
and the Sinbad ones are among my favorites.
Yes.
And strangely, Earth versus the Flying Saucers is another favorite of mine, and he did the effects for that of
Did
those
he?
flying saucers. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Um, so and Willis O'Brien, who was his mentor, who did special effects for the original King Kong movie,
Mm.
came back to do the Black Scorpion. I don't know if you ever saw that. It was from like 1950 something.
I
It's got
probably,
Mara Corday and I forget who the guy is, blonde guy. It's in those couple of those movies, but they ran out of money. So some of the effects of the giant scorpion are just a real scorpion superimposed and so he looks ghostly in the picture.
okay. I think I remember seeing,
Yeah,
yes.
he it was still the effects were pretty good,
Well,
even
for
except for
the
those few shots of that where the money ran short. But
yeah.
they were creepy looking things in that
I
movie.
love those 1950s sci-fi movies were the best.
Yeah, I
I
know, I
absolutely love them.
love them, watch them all, everything, The Thing, them, and
Yes.
that sort of thing. The Giant Behemoth, and
Yep.
you
The
name it,
Blob and
the
yeah.
Blob. Yeah. So yeah, I love those classic movies. They're
Yeah.
great. Anybody got any questions out there, or we put y'all to sleep?
Yeah, Lavon says she loves the Sinbad movies.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great movies.
And Lord A says Winged Horse Anthology was the literary book that inspired Clash of
Oh,
the
I did
Titans.
not know that. Thank you.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
fascinating.
That is interesting. So all that kind of stuff that kind of influenced my writing. I wanted to write fiction. I wanted to write Edgar Rice Burroughs type fiction. I ended up writing about the Eastern Shore, which is fine.
Yeah.
you know, and I still got two science fiction novels. Like I say, you can get them on Amazon. What I call the Twin Worlds trilogy. I'm working on book 3, but that's my tribute to Edgar Rice Burroughs and Robert E. Howard, folks like that, in that, because if you read that, and I've had people on online reviews on Amazon say that's what it's like, in that tradition. So, and that's got it doesn't have a lot of reviews, but all the reviews are good. So if you like John Carter, Flash Gordon, that sort of thing, Star Wars, Twin Worlds, yeah, try it out. Try it, you'll like it, like the fella used to say.
Yeah, we'll have to. Okay. Well, does anyone have any questions? Any further questions? I think there was another podcast that started at 9:00 or something. So half of the audience.
People, well, yeah. Well, we've been talking about a good clip here for a couple of hours. So
Yeah. We've covered quite a bit, and we'll get. I'll send your link over to Jeff for his Old Line Cryptids podcast.
Sure. As soon as I get the issue with my graphics driver on my desktop, I'll have that all fixed. It's a brand new computer. It's only 2 weeks old, and somehow the graphics driver, the software for my graphics card, got corrupted, and I'm going to have to delete it entirely and reinstall it, I guess.
Well, you did very well right here with your laptop. That's all I'm using.
It's the office laptop.
Oops.
Nobody from the office is tuning in, I'm pretty sure. But that was my, but once I just went down a rabbit hole trying to figure out what was wrong with the graphics driver. I was looking had my eye on the clock, and I'm like, and I'm working with Copilot, the Microsoft AI.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, well, this is what I got. Okay, do this. This is what I got. Okay, do this. I'm like, I got to go. I'm having a podcast. He said, oh, yeah, well, it's going to be on. I'm like, you don't care. I said, we're going to talk about Bigfoot. Oh, that's, it's AI. It's a robot.
AI.
He's just bouncing off what I'm telling you.
Okay, let's see.
I said Bigfoot.
His shots and is very well house trained. Well, I think he wouldn't fit in my house. But thank you.
I got enough. I got enough things to eat around here now. I got 3 dogs and cat plus the family. So
yeah, my husband complains about the dog hair enough, so I don't need any more.
Yeah, I hear you. No, I don't need nothing that eats.
Oh, that's funny. But no, I wanted to thank you, Andy, for coming on.
Hey, it was fun. I knew it was going to be fun. It's fun.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, luckily, nobody got bored apparently because they didn't get grumpy faces or anything like that. But yeah.
No.
So thanks for listening. Thanks for sticking with us. And enjoyed being on. If you feel moved, by all means, check out my books. I'd love to get your feedback on them. I would love to have some reviews on Amazon. It's all about metrics on there. So,
yes.
So yeah. So all right. Thanks, Levane. I try not to be.
Nope. Not at all.
Yeah, and send me a Facebook friendship. Said, hey, saw you on the podcast. Can I be your friend? Sure. Because I'm always got something going on.
Yeah, sounds like you still keep fairly busy, which is good.
Look, my late father-in-law, he said, if I stop, I'm done. And nothing stopped him till he fell downstairs and broke his hip, and then he was done.
Yeah.
So I'm only semi-retired. I still like writing the books. I still like coming on and talking hot air for folks here.
Well, I retired 10 years ago, and I was able to jump into my Bigfooting full time then. So that's what keeps me off the streets.
Well, yeah, I hear you. Yeah. Well, like I say, I don't don't go out, until I'm ready to do a book. I don't do a whole lot of research. Then I go do the research. Like for this next book, I'm going to be driving all up down the shore, taking pictures of places where things took place.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I do. That's why my books are heavily illustrated, lots of photos, lots of drawings, stuff like that, because I don't just tell you about it, I show it to you. And I always put a big bibliography in the back. I like, you don't believe me, read it here.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. So, yeah. And thank you, Levane and Lorda and Blue Eyed Northern and all the rest of you guys. I appreciate the good news comments. I just feel blessed to hear from you. So,
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming on, and we'll get you hooked up with Jeff and Jerry on their old line cryptids, and we'll go from there. And whenever you're on their show, I'll jump in and comment.
well, you got that creep on your show. Oh, yeah. Okay. Sounds good.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Andy. You have a
Pleasure.
great evening. I appreciate you so much. Thank you.
Sure thing. Have a good one.
You too. All right, guys. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us this evening. I do appreciate everyone, for commenting, for your great questions. You guys, you blow me away with all you come up with. Okay, Lord, you're a fly fishing fanatic. Ah, very cool. Well, good night. Yes, thank you all. And I also wanted to get into, at the beginning of the podcast, I said that I wanted to make an announcement, and I have been talking about it here and there. I've spoken with a few people, around, in the group and so on. I am not retiring. I am not leaving Pennsylvania Bigfoot Project, so don't worry about that. I'm not leaving the podcast. I have, as you know, at the beginning of every podcast, I go over the different conferences and festivals that I'm scheduled at, and I give you dates and locations. Well, and if you noticed at the beginning of this podcast, I did not mention the conferences and festivals. I am having to withdraw from the going to, speaking at the conferences and festivals this year. I'm just going to take a step back, give myself this year to rest up, give my body a chance to heal. Some of you may know, and some of you may not know. I've gone over it before. I have long COVID, which is a condition where I had COVID way back in September of 2019, and the effects of that have hung on and are increasing and getting worse year after year exponentially. And, there's different, symptoms to what they call long COVID, which includes, I don't know if you notice, but every so often, I have to take a breath more often. I have lung damage from having COVID. It's from the long COVID. I get exhausted extremely easily. Just, whenever you speak at different conferences, and especially for a 3-day festival like the Forest County Festival, setting up a booth, a table with all your everything that you're going to be selling, sitting there all day long out in the, even though you're sitting on the most part, you're still engaging with people, and then getting up and walking to the stage and climbing up on the stage, speaking for an hour, taking questions and so on, getting off the stage and walking back to wherever your booth is. That alone would put me in bed for a couple days. I physically cannot handle that anymore. I physically can't. It's beyond me for this year. I am doing different treatments. I've spoken with a pulmonologist a couple years ago who really was not able to help. In fact, the medication that she gave me sent me to the emergency room. Yeah, you're right, Patty. When you have trouble breathing, you get exhausted easily. Yes, because you're not able to process as much oxygen, and it's just exhausting. And there's another festival 5 hours across, at the other end of the state coming up. And I'm sorry. Thank you, Gary. I appreciate it. The 5-hour drive, that is daunting. That would send me into, to bed for a couple of days. And sorry. Oh, I don't know what's wrong here. I'm just getting clogged up. I'm going to have to check on my, can't remember what it's called. Brain fog is another sign or symptom of it, where you forget words, you just feel not quite there, it's just part of it. So it's fun. Not, but I promise you, I will continue the podcast. I'm continuing Pennsylvania Bigfoot Project. The camp out and in June in the Allegheny National Forest. It's only an hour and a half away. And that really won't be too bad of a drive. And even so, even if I'm exhausted after it, I'll be in a van, so I can just lay down and take a nap as soon as I pull into the camping spot. So, so I think I'll be able to manage for that weekend. But I do appreciate all of you. And so I appreciate you understanding, and I appreciate your prayers very much, and your friendship. And well, tell you what, I think I shall end this here. We're almost at 10 o'clock. And I think we'll just go ahead and close this down for the evening. Thank you, guys. You have no idea just how much I appreciate you coming on and joining me for, for this short amount of time, and everything that you guys do, and as your support. Thank you. Well, okay. I see there's a few of you jumping in. Thank you. Yeah, so please keep me in your prayers, and I appreciate that. So I tell you what, let me check my calendar, because to see who's going to be on next week. Ooh, next week it's one of our very own fans here on the chat, Matt Nightmare 365. He runs a podcast or a YouTube channel. Thank you, Mark. I appreciate it. Yeah, Matt Nightmare 365. He will be our guest next week. And so we're looking forward to that. See what his research efforts are, and what he's discovered and so on, and where he researches. I have no idea. So we'll look forward to that. The 21st, Todd Smith will rejoin us. And May 28th, it'll be Miss Vicky. Miss Vicky will join us on May 28th. So looking forward to that. Okay, there we go. So guys, we'll close it down. Thank you, Patty. Oh, believe me, I will. This wipes me out. Doing the podcast, engaging. I love it. I love it so much, talking, and engaging with, some fascinating people. And, all you guys, I love it. It's exhausting, though. Yeah, you're right, Ken. COVID took many loved ones. And okay, you've also had long-term effects as well. Well, I'll keep you in my prayers. It's not fun. There's so many different people who have this. Not all of us have this exact same symptoms in our long COVID. It affects different people different ways, and with myself, it's my breathing. I can walk across the room and be huffing and puffing, out of breath. Cooking dinner for myself and my husband is exhausting, absolutely exhausting. And getting dressed it's exhausting. That's what this does. Gary, yeah. Putting on my shoes, yes. Tell you what, I found shoes, and unsponsored, but there's a brand called Kizik, Kizik. I've bought 4 pairs of their shoes. You can just slip your feet in. You don't need to put your shoehorn in to hold up the back. You don't need to hold it or anything. Just put your feet in. So easy. I love them. So comfortable. They're a little pricey, but well worth it. Kizik. So check them out. If you have just putting on shoes, get the kind where just slip them on. Okay. Well, guys, again, love you all. You wear Crocs for now, okay? Whatever you find comfortable. Okay, guys, so tell you what, we'll see you next week, same time, same channel. And this is Monkey Wench. Let me see if I can. Here we go. Have a great evening. Love you. Monkey Wench out.